Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that will change the way you wake up in the morning. God was present when you were broken. That's not a phrase to comfort you. That's a fact backed by the very nature of who God is. He's not a distant observer. He's not someone who checks in after the storm passes. He is the God who is present in the midst of the pain, not after it. When everything in your life started to unravel, when the people you trusted disappointed you, when the dreams you built started to crumble, he was there. Not only was he there, he knew it before it even happened. He saw it coming and allowed it, not because he enjoys your suffering, but because he sees what you can't see, the outcome beyond the moment. You might think you were alone during that heartbreak, that betrayal, that devastating failure, but you weren't. God was standing beside you when the phone call came. He was near when the tears wouldn't stop flowing. He was right there in that hospital room, in that courtroom, in that bedroom where you cried yourself to sleep. Every tear that hit your pillow, he caught it. Every sigh that escaped your lips, he heard it. Every silent scream, he understood it. Nothing about your brokenness went unnoticed by him. Sometimes we think that if God were really with us, we wouldn't have gone through what we went through. But presence doesn't always mean prevention. Sometimes God's greatest acts of love aren't in what he stops, but in how he holds you through what he allows. When the pain hit, it didn't take him by surprise. He didn't retreat. He leaned in. The God who knit you together in your mother's womb wasn't going to abandon you just because life unraveled. He was there, not watching from a distance, but close enough to carry the weight you couldn't lift. What we fail to realize is that presence is often most powerful in silence. Just because he didn't speak doesn't mean he wasn't there. Just because he didn't intervene the way you expected doesn't mean he was absent. Sometimes his nearness isn't loud. It's steady. It's in the peace that made no sense. It's in the strength that came out of nowhere. It's in the fact that you're still standing even after everything tried to knock you down. He was there when the words cut deep. He was there when you doubted your worth. He was there when you started to question your identity, your calling, even your reason for being alive. And while others may have judged you, left you, misunderstood you, he remained. You see, God isn't like people. He doesn't walk away when it gets messy. He doesn't retreat when the image cracks. In fact, the broken places in your life don't repel him. They draw him closer. That's who he is, a healer, a restorer, a father. God doesn't miss moments. He doesn't miss cries. What people overlook, he sees. What people step over, he stoops down to touch. When you were surrounded by silence, he was speaking in ways you didn't know how to hear yet. When you were feeling abandoned, he was orchestrating a comeback that would defy every prediction. Even when you felt unseen, he saw you entirely. Not the version you showed the world, but the one behind closed doors. The tired, weary, disappointed you. And he didn't turn away. He stayed. There's something sacred about the way God shows up in brokenness. He doesn't always fix it right away, but he always enters into it. He's not afraid of your mess, your questions, or even your anger. He understands it. He welcomes it. He lets you bring all of it to him. Not because he needs to know, but because he wants you to know he's listening. He doesn't shame your weakness. He sits with you in it. That moment when you thought you lost everything, he was already preparing what comes next. He was there when you blamed yourself. He was there when guilt and shame tried to build a home in your soul. He was there when your strength gave out and you didn't even want to pray anymore. And yet, he stayed. That's not weakness. That's love, real love. Love that doesn't run. Love that doesn't flinch. Love that enters the pit with you and refuses to leave until you rise again. Your pain has a purpose. That's not just something we say to make suffering feel lighter. It's a truth rooted in the very character of God. Pain in God's hands is never wasted. It's never random. It's never meaningless. Every ache, every loss, every moment you question whether you would make it out, it's all connected to something greater. You may not see it now, but heaven doesn't work on your timeline. Heaven works on purpose. And that purpose is bigger than your temporary discomfort. It's bigger than the disappointment, the heartbreak, and even the failure. Pain reveals what comfort hides. When everything is easy, when everything flows, we often miss what God is truly trying to build in us. But when life breaks us open, when pressure hits, when we're left with nothing but raw faith and cracked hearts, that's where purpose is often born. The very thing that felt like it would destroy you is the same thing God can use to develop you. He allows pain not to punish you, but to prepare you. You were never meant to stay in the place of pain, but you were meant to pass through it carrying something you didn't have before. Your pain carries clues about your calling, clues about what you were born to do. The enemy wants you to believe that your suffering is proof that you're cursed, forgotten, or unworthy. But it's often the opposite. The enemy fights hardest where God plans to use you most. He applies pressure to the area of your purpose. That's why the pain feels so personal, because it is. It's tied to who you are, to who you're becoming, to the people you're called to impact. Think about the moments that marked you the most. The ones you try not to revisit. The nights you cried out. The times you broke down in silence. The conversations you wish you could erase. As painful as they were, they're a part of your story. A story that will one day speak to someone else's survival. Someone is waiting on the other side of your healing. Someone is waiting for the strength you're building right now. What crushed you is creating empathy in you. What hurt you is making you a vessel of healing for others. That's not coincidence. That's purpose. God doesn't cause all things, but he does use all things. And when he uses pain, he turns it into wisdom, strength, compassion, and clarity. You don't go through what you've been through and come out the same. You come out deeper. You come out wiser. You come out sharper. That's why the process is necessary. It may not be comfortable, but it is intentional. God isn't in the business of random suffering. He's in the business of divine transformation. And pain is often the fire that purifies us, the pressure that shapes us. There's something powerful about the person who doesn't run from their pain, but leans into it with faith. You might not understand why now. You might not like how it feels. But somewhere down the line, you'll look back and realize that what nearly broke you was actually building you brick by brick. And if God allowed it, he plans to use it. He's too precise to be careless. He's too intentional to be random. He doesn't need your pain to make sense right now. He just needs you to trust that he's not wasting it. Your scars will one day be signs. Signs of survival. Signs of grace. Signs of battles fought and victories won. They'll be proof that you passed through the fire and didn't get burned, that you walked through the valley and didn't stay there. Your testimony won't just be that you made it through. It'll be that you discovered your purpose in the very place where you thought it had died. So even in the middle of the pain, remember there is a reason for this season. You may not see the full picture yet, but purpose is already forming in the background. The process is not the promise. That's where many people get discouraged, confusing the journey with the destination. Just because it's hard right now doesn't mean God has changed his mind about what he said. Just because it doesn't look like what you expected doesn't mean the promise isn't still alive. The process might be messy, painful, unpredictable, but it's not the end. It's the road to the end. And if God gave you a promise, he hasn't taken it back just because things don't feel good. The problem is, we often fall in love with the idea of the promise, but we don't prepare for the weight of the process. We want the outcome without the stretching. We want the victory without the battle. But there's always a middle. Every promise in Scripture came with a process. David was anointed king, but before the crown, there were caves. Joseph dreamed of leadership, but before the palace, there was a pit and a prison. Even Jesus had to walk through Gethsemane before he walked out of the grave. The promise was true from the start, but the process had to be endured. The process tests what the promise spoke. It exposes what's in you that can't go with you into the next level. It confronts pride, strips away idols, and strengthens your capacity. And when it feels like God is silent, he's not absent. He's working in ways you don't yet understand. You see the chaos. He sees the construction. You feel like it's falling apart. He knows it's coming together. God doesn't rush development. He's not in a hurry to get you to the promise if it means losing you in the process. Because what good is the blessing if your character can't carry it? What good is the platform if your spirit is still fragile? That's why the process is so critical. It's preparation in disguise. It teaches you obedience when you don't see results. It teaches you trust when things don't make sense. It teaches you endurance when your strength runs out. You may feel stuck right now, but doesn't mean God's not moving. Delay is not denial. Detours are not dead ends. The Israelites wandered for 40 years, but the promise was still waiting. Abraham waited decades for a son, but the promise was still intact. God doesn't cancel his word. He completes it in his time, and his time always includes a process. The danger is when we stop in the middle, when we start building theology around temporary pain, when we start thinking God's silence means abandonment, when we treat the valley like a verdict instead of a passage. The process might feel like failure, but it's really formation. He's forming in you the strength, the vision, and the maturity needed to carry the very thing you prayed for. The wilderness doesn't kill the promise. It grows the person. Don't let frustration make you forfeit what you were promised. Don't let pain talk you out of the purpose. Don't let people who don't understand your process convince you that the promise isn't real. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not holy. Just because it's slow doesn't mean it's not sure. God's promises are yas and amen, but his path to them may not look like what you had in mind. You can't measure the truth of the promise by the ease of the journey. That's a trap. The enemy would love for you to give up halfway, to call it finished when God is still working. He wants you to confuse progress with punishment, stretching with abandonment. But if you could see what's being built beneath the surface, you'd understand. The process is proof the promise is still alive. Everything you're walking through right now is connected. Every delay, every disappointment, every closed door, it's shaping something in you. God is not wasting a single moment. He's not making a mistake. He's not improvising. The process is intentional. It may be long, it may be painful, but it is never pointless. Healing is already in motion. It may not feel like it. You may not see the evidence yet, but the moment the wound was made, the healing began. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but quietly, deeply, and deliberately. You don't have to wait until you feel whole to know that restoration is already underway. Healing doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it moves in silence. Sometimes it works in the background. Sometimes it shows up as strength you didn't think you had, peace you didn't expect, or clarity that suddenly makes sense of the confusion. God doesn't delay healing. He begins it immediately, but he unfolds it over time. Not because he can't do it instantly, but because there's purpose in the process. Instant healing might remove the pain, but it might not remove the patterns. And God is more interested in full restoration than quick relief. So he works layer by layer, not just mending what's visible, but going deeper. down to the root of what broke, what scarred, what cracked open your trust, your confidence, your identity. Healing is happening when you choose to get back up, even if you still feel weak. Healing is happening when you choose to forgive, even when you still remember the wound. Healing is happening when your first instinct isn't anger or bitterness, when your tears feel different, when your silence becomes sacred instead of heavy. It's in the little shifts, the ones that don't make headlines, the ones nobody else notices, but heaven notices. And those small shifts, they're signs that the hand of God is moving inside you. You might not feel like you're getting better, but healing isn't always linear. It's not a straight line. It's a series of steps forward, some steps back, moments of strength, days of uncertainty. And that's okay. God isn't measuring your healing by perfection. He's measuring it by progress, by trust, by surrender. And he's not waiting until you're completely whole to love you fully. He loves you right in the middle of the mending. There are parts of you healing right now from things you haven't even spoken about. Wounds you've buried deep. Words you've never said out loud. God is addressing even those places. The silent ones, the secret ones. Because his healing isn't surface level. He gets to the root. He deals with the lies you believed, the shame you carried, the identity you lost. He doesn't just patch up the pain. He transforms it. And while you're trying to figure out when it will all make sense, God is already doing a new thing in you. You might not see the new yet, but it's growing beneath the surface. The heaviness is lifting. The grip of the past is loosening. You're not stuck. You're being softened, reshaped, and renewed. Healing often looks like weakness before it feels like strength. It may look like tears before it feels like joy. But make no mistake, it's happening. You don't have to earn healing. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to have all the answers or fix yourself first. Healing is a gift, a movement of grace, and it doesn't require your perfection, only your permission. The moment you said, God, I can't do this alone, was the moment healing picked up speed. Not because you had it figured out, but because you let go of control and trusted the one who does. So even if you still feel broken, even if you're still unsure of how the pieces will come together, know this, the work has already begun. It's not coming someday. It's already in progress. You're not waiting for healing to start. Healing is waiting for you to notice that it already has. What broke you will not define you. That moment, that season, that situation that left you in pieces, it doesn't get the final word. It doesn't get to label you. It doesn't get to shape your identity. What happened may have been real. It may have cut deep, but it is not who you are. It's a chapter, not your title. It's part of the story, not the whole narrative. You are not the mistake. You are not the betrayal. You are not the loss. You are not the trauma. You are not the shame. You are not the abandonment. You are more than what happened to you. People may try to define you by your past. Pain may try to convince you that this is all you'll ever be. But God never identifies you by what broke you. He identifies you by what he put in you. That means your identity isn't wrapped up in your worst day. It's anchored in your purpose. You were chosen before the pain. You were called before the crisis. You were destined before the detour. And no broken experience can undo what heaven already declared over your life. You may have been wounded, but you are not worthless. You may have been shattered, but you are not forsaken. In fact, God specializes in rewriting the meaning of broken things. He takes what the enemy tried to use as a label and turns it into a testimony. That scar you hide, it's becoming a sign of strength. That failure you carry, it's becoming a foundation for wisdom. That heartbreak, it's becoming a doorway to deeper love, deeper compassion, deeper faith. There's a lie that often whispers after we've been broken, that we're damaged goods, that we'll never be the same, that we'll never get back what we lost. But the truth is, you don't have to go back to who you were, because God is making you into something better. He's not interested in restoring the old you. He's forming a new creation. And in his hands, your brokenness becomes sacred material. Not something to hide, but something he uses for glory. The world may define you by what broke you, but God defines you by what he's building in you. You are not broken beyond use. You are broken into purpose. Your identity is not determined by the event. It's determined by the Creator, the labels they gave you. Temporary. The pain you endured. Real, but not your name. You don't have to carry the weight of a false identity. You don't have to shrink to fit the box someone else put you in. You were never meant to stay in the ruins. You were always meant to rise from them. What broke you doesn't own your future. It doesn't control your voice, your vision, or your value. You have the right to heal. You have the authority to grow. You have the freedom to evolve. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it left marks. But those marks are proof of movement, not paralysis. They are reminders that you passed through something that tried to end you. And you're still here. Sometimes the most powerful version of you is born out of the ashes of the old one. The version of you that learned to speak truth over lies. The version that no longer needs approval to feel worthy. The version that walks with quiet fire and unshakable grace. That version isn't defined by the pain. It's informed by it, not ruled by the wound, but wiser because of it. What broke you tried to bury you, but it didn't know you were a seed. And seeds don't die in the dark. They grow. So don't be afraid of the remnants. Don't be afraid of the cracks. They are proof that you survived, that you endured, that you are becoming someone even stronger than before. Restoration has already begun. You may not feel it, you may not see it, but the shift has already started. God doesn't wait for circumstances to line up before he begins the work. He starts in the unseen, beneath the surface, where faith grows and strength returns. While you've been trying to hold it all together, God has been quietly putting the broken pieces of your life into divine alignment. What felt like the end was actually the beginning of something new. Restoration doesn't always begin with a breakthrough moment. Sometimes it starts with small decisions. Choosing to get up, choosing to believe again, choosing to let go of what you can't control. Those small choices create space for God to move. Every moment you refused to quit, every breath you took in faith, every tear you surrendered, all of it has been part of the rebuilding. He's not just putting you back together the way you were. He's restoring you into something stronger, wiser, and more complete. God restores in layers. He begins with the heart, then the mind, then the outer circumstances. You might be looking for restoration in what's visible, but God starts with the invisible. He restores your hope. He restores your trust. He restores your ability to dream again, believe again, love again. That's the real work. Not just changing your situation, but changing the way you see yourself, your past, your future. You're not waiting for him to show up. He's already in the room. You're not waiting for him to hear you. He's already been listening. He's not behind. He's ahead, preparing, aligning, orchestrating, and even the closed doors, the delays, the detours. They've all been part of the restoration. What looked like loss was protection. What felt like rejection was redirection. What seemed like the end was God making room for what's next. When God restores, he doesn't return you to where you were. He takes you further. He multiplies. He redeems time, relationships, identity, and purpose. He brings beauty out of ashes, joy out of mourning, strength out of sorrow. Restoration with God is never one for one. It's overflow. It's not just about getting back what you lost. It's about receiving what you didn't even know you needed. Right now, heaven is working behind the scenes. Doors are opening. Chains are breaking. The atmosphere is shifting. It may still feel heavy, but something has already turned. The silence you feel is not stillness. It's strategy. God is building the foundation. He's putting weight beneath your feet. What was unstable is becoming solid. What was broken is being rebuilt with divine precision. And when the restoration becomes visible, it will be undeniable. So hear this. You are not forgotten, not forsaken, and not finished. What broke you did not break God's plan for you. Every tear, every unanswered question is being gathered into something far greater than you can imagine. God has not just seen your pain. He has stepped into it. He has been healing, restoring, rebuilding from the inside out. And the evidence will show. You are walking proof that brokenness is not the end, but the beginning of becoming. The pieces are not wasted. The process is not pointless. And the promise is still alive. Stand in that truth. Speak from that power. Walk like someone whose future is in the hands of a God who never fails. Because he knows what broke you, and he's already fixing it.